Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please stand up. You've got about 30 seconds, stretch your legs, and really got attention on this one. Hopefully it'll be interesting. Okay, I'll be taking questions during the presentation, and if you have any involvement, stand up and we'll go from there. Okay. Unfortunately, I thought we had that little presentation thing, so I'm going to have to start here. Okay. I'll be talking about a number of different things here today in regards to security. I'm by no means a security specialist, however I do have a lot of experience in regards to helping a number of clients that their website's been hacked in the past, and it always comes down to the simple things that people can do, which they completely ignore, and they end up with their website being hacked and having all kinds of issues. So, first of all, who here uses Fantastica to do an installation of their Joomla? Hands up, please. Okay. James. It's basically a set of rules set there that it's commonly known, and it's not secure. So try avoiding that. Highly recommend doing your own manual installations because you have a lot more control over what happens on the website and how the website gets configured, basically from the database all the way across to all the way across to the installation and the users that you set up and permissions. The most common thing is basically when you do an installation of your Joomla website is you get the prefix JOS for all your tables. Okay, one of the things you would want to do is remove that, change that to something unknown, something that is just a variable that maybe makes sense to the project or to the user or to yourself. Okay, I've come across a number of websites where they actually they forget, or well, they don't really forget to delete their installation folder. They actually rename their installation folder, for example, installation, and then old or something, or whatever the case may be. Please delete it, because that has all the recipes for somebody to go through it, and people can easily sort of find this sort of stuff. They look for it, they write a script, scan the URLs, and find Joomla website, and look for different sort of vulnerabilities on your website. Okay, Mysql Passwords, part of the installation, when you're creating it, don't make it a normal password. There is actually a tool in cPanel where you're creating a table, so when you're creating an initial database, it allows you to create an extremely complex password that you will never remember. Nobody will remember. That's you just have to make a copy of it, put it in there, and then just destroy that copy because you will never need it. After that, that's just for the Joomla and the database to interact. Okay, Joomla SEX. It's actually quite interesting search engine friendly URLs because they don't just become search engine friendly URLs, they actually hide a lot of vulnerabilities. For example, Patrick's talking about a lot of components and extensions and things like that. All of them will have their own sort of IDs and their own sort of extensions in the URL that is visible, and the search engines will pick up on these. So if I was to go to Google and if I went to type in something like all entitled, semicolon, look for a particular component that may have been listed in Google and add that part of the name of the actual component in the URL, I'll end up with a massive list of Joomla websites that have that vulnerability installed on their website. Jackpot for the hacker. Okay? htaccess file is probably one of the things that everybody should become familiar with. In lockdown, a lot of things can do a lot of can help a lot with securing your website from URLs, directories, and all kinds of interesting things. If you have a look at the URL, the link that I have on there, which is directly from the actual Joomla website, there is examples of recommended htaccess files that you should have on your website. And then you've got your robot.txt file on your main directory. What they'll allow you to do is basically you can write the rules in there, what directories or what files you don't want the search engines to have listed. So when somebody does run a search on Google or any other search engine, hopefully it will not come up. There are crawlers, or there are robots that actually, they will bypass this document, this text file, and they will ignore what's in there anyway. So, but it is best to have it, so those that are actually legitimate and that are quite responsible, for example Google being one of the largest ones out there, so they will ignore it, whatever's been listed in there. So the chances are you'll be better off. The other common thing is remove the meta Joomla generator in your index PHP file, and that's the command that you can use up the top in there. That will remove it. The reason why you want to do that is all about masking your website. It's all about telling the minimum possible information to the world of what CMS you're using and how the back end of your website and your server and your system is actually configured. It is about hiding as much information as you can from the rest of the world. That's all it is. Okay, and when you do an installation, this is actually Joomla 1.5, 1.7, 1.8. I think the ID is different. Steve, do you know what the ID was? Remember? 80 or 80 something, was it?
62 is Joomla 1.5.
So that's 1.5.
42 is 1.6.
That's it, 42. Okay, so delete that, change the username from admin, don't ever use it. Change the ID from 62. Actually, if you do an installation, make sure that you take that ID, take that user admin with the ID 62, make it just a normal registered or completely delete it. There are tools and components available that will allow you to change these to a random sort of numbers that you may need to use. Okay. Another interesting thing I found on the website once was the JCE text editor, which when you're installing a JCE, there is a configuration that allows you to run scripts or PHP, JavaScript, all kinds of stuff, including uploading files. If you have a website where you're giving permission to people to be able to upload files or edit files or blogs or any piece of information, make sure that is locked. Make sure they're not able to upload anything on there. And if they can, if they have to upload something, make sure you have the actual extensions specified what is allowed, what is not, whether it's a JPEG or PDF or any other file format that they can do that. Okay. If you need to, like a lot of times you find you create a blank, so you create a folder for your images, you don't want to use the default folders or directory structures. Always in there add a blank index HTML file. Okay, so just it becomes blank white piece of paper, nothing can be seen, and make that directory or that folder included in your robot.txt file that is not to be listed on the on search engines so people don't find it. Yes. Okay. I think sometimes because the web's changing so much every day, and there's a lot of people make new contributions to open source projects such as Joomla, you find a lot of vulnerabilities all the time. So the best thing is for you to protect yourself sometimes is having a sufficient backup system in place, knowing exactly what you had last and knowing okay where you're at and how you can actually go back. And one of them is you can use a Archive backup. You can also do your manual backups yourself if you need to. Basically by literally copying all your installation directory, your Joomla file system and your website through PHP-MyAdmin. You can do that. The other option is there are a couple of tools there, rsync and SQL. You can use those to, and an FTP clients, you can use those to actually synchronize your website to a local copy somewhere based on the time, based on a daily, weekly, overnight, whatever the case may be. You can configure it to help you keep it backup and automate it using those tools, so you don't have to sit there every day. If you've got 50 websites you're looking up for your client, okay, you can use that. Obviously, your hosting provider should have its own backup systems in place. However, as probably most of us know that whenever there's a problem with your website that's been hacked, it's not the hosting provider's fault, it is Joomla. So that's what it comes down to. Usually they're lazy, and usually not all. They don't want to put in the correct systems in place to protect themselves and protect their clients. So be very careful in managing your backups and who you're hosting with. Next one. Okay, your hosting provider. What they should be considering is, or if you're running your own server, okay, TP Help, what that does is basically allows you to protect your site or directories from brute force attacks. Okay, have more security installs. Didn't go to read that content there, it's too small. Okay, it's a web application firewall. Okay, it works either embedded or as a reverse proxy. Basically, it will help you with a lot of it is technical. Don't worry about it, but just these are questions that you should be asking. Does my provider have this sort of stuff in place? Are they actually looking out for my best interests by me hosting my website there? File permissions. Okay, if you see 777, that's that's actually bad news. Try and have not use 777 means that what that means for that folder when you're creating a directory or folder, give it the minimum amount of permission necessary for you to do what you need to do to read or write. Basically that means everybody in the world can read, write and execute files onto that particular folder. And then as it goes down, the security by permissions on that goes down. That means that less and less people can actually access it depending on the permissions that they have. The other thing is you can always password protect your administrator file. It is commonly known, okay, whenever any Joomla website, once you find it, based on a search on Google, you know that /administrator takes you there. And if your password has been sort of, if you're using a common password across a couple of different websites and you know one of those websites has been hacked, potentially if they do find it, people might actually look for the user list and find you having other websites that will try and access your site using those. So what you want to do is password protect that directory, have a completely different password. So what that means is when you log into your Joomla website, you got administrator, you get a window, sort of an alert prompt with a username and password. You get into that, then you will see your administrator login screen again. So that gives you an extra layer of protection.
Sorry, are you talking about like a .h2 password, basically?
Pretty much. Like if you're using cPanel, in cPanel you can create a folder, or a user and a folder, and point to it, say this user can access this folder, but nobody else can. So you can configure it in your htaccess files, and you can do it on your cPanel. Okay. Firewalls, there are a number of different firewall technologies that people need to consider. CSF is actually a free, I think it's open source, but it is a free available software as well that you can install on your Linux box or Linux virtual machine, depending what environment you're running. Okay, and that will give you a lot of control over who can access what and IP addresses, users, and all that sort of stuff. Then the next big thing is perhaps the next one is your file protection through Cisco hardware. That is more your hosting provider's responsibility because they are very, very expensive. We just purchased one and it cost about 12 grand for one of those units. So they're not cheap, and you need to sort of ask around whether they actually do have that in place or not. Okay, and they'll provide a lot of security. Normally, with my service, I've got a few of them, and what I've done on there, block absolutely everything. Only open ports data and no data will need, for example, 80, 80, 80, 21, 22, just a common ports for the web. Unless there's a specific application that you will need ports, then don't open it, block everything else. I had blocking IP addresses. I had one client who came to me and said, look, my website's been hacked. Looked at the website, had all this flying colors and flags, and you've been hacked by a hacker from Turkey. And tried to get into the administrator site, same thing. You can log in, you could get the administrator page. You could log in, but you couldn't see anything. Once you logged in, you'll see the exact same page as the home page, which was just a lot of stars and flags and a little message saying you've been hacked. Well, thank you for hacking me. You could have sent me an email instead of taking over the whole site. So that is quite common. So use that. Use the block IP addresses if you know your customers and your clients and your users are specific to a particular region, area. If you're getting a lot of trouble from a lot of Eastern European countries, not mentioning any specific ones. So do block those IP addresses. You can look up online and you can get a list of what country or what region using what IP addresses and put them in there in your CSF firewall, and you can have them all blocked and they'll get absolutely nothing. Okay.
Excuse me?
Yes?
Do the hosting people do that?
Okay, depends. Yes, they can. They should be able to do that unless you're running your environment, and then you can do that yourself as well. Let's go.
Smashing through it, buddy.
Am I?
You're smashing through it.
Well, looking at the time, making up. That's all right. But yeah, the other thing is on the Joomla website, there's a security checklist with these documents there. Basically, is quite a number of quite a bit of information there, which is very comprehensive, very well documented. Have a look at it, have a read, and go through it. And if it doesn't make sense, there's the forum. Get on the forums, ask the questions, and be able to get a lot of support from that. Okay. Other than that, here's the good news. Okay. If you guys want me to go back into any of the slides, if you need to take notes, ask questions, please let me know. We've got a bit of time, I believe.
Have you used anything like RS Firewall?
Yes, there is 2 versions of RS Firewall, I believe. That gives you quite a bit of control, which allows you to automatically checks all your permissions on your Joomla install. For example, if it has incorrect permissions, you can do a repair. It will change the admin ID. It will change a lot of stuff. And there is a paid version and there is a free version as well. So RS Firewall is quite a good tool. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
So just right at the beginning when you were talking about Fantastico,
Yes.
what did you say about that? That it's not good? Or it's
Okay, the reason why Fantastico I don't recommend it is because you don't have control over the configuration of how the database is going to be and how the site's going to be, or your prefixes. You can fix a lot of this stuff. I've got it on there next to the JOS prefix. EasySQL or RS Firewall will actually allow you to change your database prefix. Okay, but you want to avoid Fantastico. It is convenient. It's a fantastic tool, which is why they named it that way. But however, it does have some issues with regards to security because of the way it installs a lot of things. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's the Akiva backup you mentioned?
Akiva Backup is a component you can install. There's actually a desktop version as well. Akiva Backup is basically you install onto your site, and you pretty much one-click button. It does a backup, gives you a, I think the tar file or zip file. Sorry, JPA. Yeah, it gives you the JPA file. You can download that, and then you can use Akiva Restore to actually restore it, or you can even use it to migrate your website from one server to another as well. And there is a desktop tool for it as well that you can automate that as well, and it will run it for you based on the time schedule. And it will download a copy locally onto your machine at home. Okay.
The JOS prefix that you were talking about, was that during the beginning of the installation?
At the beginning of as you go through the installation, I think step 2 or 3 where it asks you for username, password, database. One of those, what do you call, expansions on the forms, you expand it. It actually has a JOS underscore in there. So you can just delete that, put XYZ or not necessarily XYZ, anything you want. Sorry?
1.7 randomisers that.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. 1.7 randomised there.
It's only 1.5 and 1.0.
Yep. Yes?
You mentioned something about SEO, search engine friendly URLs.
URLs, yeah.
That's a useful thing because it hides.
It hides the URL. If you have, let's say, a component in your website that's installed, but if that component has a security issue, that vulnerability that you're not aware of, okay, the search engines will list your websites on the search on there. So what that means is, if I went in there and if I typed in, I don't know, all the URL column double quotation mark, a part of or that component name within there and click search, Google will return every single Joomla website that has that particular component installed. That just gives the hacker a whole list of URLs and domains that they can attack based on that vulnerability. So by hiding it, then what that means is the search engine does not know that you have that. It will give you that SEF URL and it will completely bypass that particular search parameter. Yep.
There's one other comment. If you've got components and modules that you're not using, turn them off.
Correct.
Delete them. Get rid of them.
Yep.
You don't need anything more to give them gateways to get in.
Yep. It's all about removing as much information as possible from the rest of the world, about minimizing how many people are going to find you and how they're going to find you, basically eliminating as much of that as possible. And then the next level is looking at your server, looking at the functionality, all the extensions and components within the server and how it's configured and the network and so on. And you're looking at your backup as well and worst case scenario, you can also revert back to a backup that you already have. In addition to that, we've got tomorrow we do have a workshop, 3-hour workshop, which what we'll do is we'll do a Joomla install manually. And what the idea is, you do a Joomla install from the beginning all the way to the end, basically covering most of this stuff that we just went through, and giving you a bit more of a practical hands-on over that sort of session. So if you're interested, I think it's still available on the website. Sign up for it, and we'll go through it tomorrow for about 3 hours. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you have any website is being hacked before?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, because on the past 3 months, I have 3 websites is being hacked by hacker, and normally after you getting someone hacked, what will you do?
Well, you need to find out how they hacked it. You need to find out whether it was a component, whether it's a server, whether it's a network. You need to look at your log files and understand what's happening in the back end. Okay, once you understand that, or once you know what IP address they are, you can block their IP addresses, you can uninstall those vulnerabilities, or you can update it. So the best thing is make sure you're running regular updates, regular backups, okay, and keep monitoring your log files if something does get hacked, because you might have, on that server might have 40, 50 websites. Once one gets hacked, all they do is look up your IP address and find out how many other websites are hosted that are running Joomla, and guess what? You might end up overnight, over the weekend, all your 50 websites being hacked. Before you know it comes Monday, you're a very busy guy. Okay, so you want to avoid that as much as possible. So, yeah.
You come, from the sound of it, you come more from a server and network sort of...
I do host a lot of websites, so I do a lot of networking and server side of things. And plus Joomla, so I do all the hosting for all my clients on our own infrastructure. So that's why I had to learn a lot of this stuff over the past few years and make sure that we've got the right infrastructure in place to help the clients. Okay.
I think we're good.
Yep. So in addition to that,
Thank you.